Hey guys, I'm Kill Frenzy. I'm here in Berlin in my little studio. The way I came up with this track was in LA. I was sleeping in bed and I woke up in the morning, as you do when you sleep, and this vocal was just stuck in my head. So I immediately grabbed my laptop and I recorded the vocal, which is the most important thing of this track, I feel. When I use my voice while recording, it always sounds really bad. So I have to use a lot of plugins to make it sound cool, because a lot of my stuff is kind of ghetto house influenced. And I don't know anybody who could do vocals for me, so I had to get to know some of these plugins and just mess around with it, try to do it myself. I recorded it once, looped it. It's really, once you hear the original version of the way this sounds, because it's my voice, I made it with a couple of plugins from Antares, which is really cool, because I'm going to show you the original now. So here's the original, and don't laugh because I'm really embarrassed. I had to sing it a little bit higher so I could get it on the same level as the bass of when I pitched it down. So then I pitched it down, because obviously it sounded terrible. Still, it sounds terrible, but so then I had to change it up a little bit, get a little bit creative. Auto-tune helps with putting it in tune at least. Then there's this Throat plugin, also from Antares, which I really like. You can play around with these buttons. It does really cool stuff. Still, it sounds pretty terrible. Once you add the choir, though, this plugin really makes a difference. It's retarded. It's like a whole, like, I feel like I'm the guy from South Park, Stan's dad, who's like making the track. He's like, yeah, I'm Lordy. And then he shows you how to make the track, puts on some plugins, and it sounds amazing. So if you're really stupid for that, but it works and it's awesome now. It sounds like a cool dude singing it. Ableton does a pretty good job when you slow it down. You can, if you slow it down and you mess around with these things as well, the texture, you can get different effects going as well. But mostly I use these Antares ones. You can really change your voice a lot because of it also has a mutator, but you can change the length of your throat, the width and stuff like this. It's really nice, yeah, I'm impressed. Anyway, that's the main thing of the track, the vocal. Without the vocal, the track is really basic and simple. There's not much going on. It's very, very basic. So I wanted to have that simple feeling going on the whole track long. So once I add this little bass here, also very simple. It's just a guitar sample I used. The most retarded guitar sample ever. But with the kick and the hi-hats, it sounds cool, and the vocal really makes it sound badass. And then I beef it up once it gets to the little break here. This I made, this little bass line, a higher bass line I made with Mini Moog Arturia. It's the JMB Sub 2. I really like to use the Mini Moog on a lot of basses I use. Nearly all of my tracks I use the Mini Moog. But I like to beef it up at the bottom a lot of times with some other basses. So I use only the top end, like I did here. I filtered out the low end, and it's all about EQing, really, what I find. Because you can have the most stupidest sounds, old synth things that sound really bad, But once you EQ them, they sound really much better. There's only this bass line. In the of course I make it fatter by adding some layers. So this is, I use silent a lot for my bass lines as well. So this is the low end you really hear. Very simple, just go through the presets. There's this deep sub thing. Mess around a little bit with the cutoff, and that's about it. You have yourself a low bass line. But I like to add the saturator a lot from Ableton, just to get a little grit on it. And the glue compressor added too. Here's compressor for the kick. I took a little bit of the bottom end out because it was messing with some other basses, I guess. But together, you really get a dirty kind of sound, because only the guitar was too, there's not enough low end to really make it like fat. So just layering your bass line really helps a lot. I like to use the top part, I like to filter out the bass a lot on tracks I do and add grit to it by adding, for example, erosion to it, which is a plugin on Ableton. I like to use the noise and just put it around here. You can really add this little layer on top. Gives it some buzz to it that adds a character, which is interesting. Well, I feel every sound fits with a certain groove. So if I would use this same synth I used on this little sequence, it could sound terrible and not interesting at all. But because the groove and the sound fits together, it all makes sense. If I would use a different synth for this sound, it would possibly sound terrible, but I found out that using the most simple sounds that when you go through the presets, you think, okay, let's go through this sound. You think, okay, that sounds really boring and stupid. But as soon as you have the right groove, that sound can be amazing. It's hard to make a little groove and then find the right sound for it, although sometimes that works. But I find doing it at the same time, it's kind of a luck thing. You just play around, and that's how I did with this one. I was just sitting in bed and I was jamming on these keyboards, and it just happened. And it was the right sound at the right time. You know, it's like you can't always make it happen the way you think. But I think having an idea for a track is definitely very important, because then you can get it done way quicker as well. And the main idea for this one was just that vocal, the whole track long, and then a simple bass line in the back, just go dum dum dum. And I wanted to go back to that, but to switch it up, I used this mini move and make this little sequence right now, just to make it a little bit more interesting. But then it goes back. It's a little break, nothing much. And back to the same thing. It's the same thing over and over, because I just like it so much. It's so simple. Here, what I did here then, at like about 1 minute 54, I switched the sound for the main bass. Instead of going dum, dum, I switched it to the same sequence as this little one here. But you can't really tell. It still has that same, how do you say, the same pulse going on because of the beat and the drums. So it's interesting, yeah. I used a smaller one here, wait. No, I didn't. Yeah, I like to sample like some old tracks or old tracks. I like to sample a lot and cut those up and just loop them. I feel like gives it some grit. Or you could do it yourself, of course, with some drum machines. But let's see, for a clap here, what's a nice little trick is to actually use two different claps, and you pan one to the left, one to the right. you get some kind of stereo sound going on without actually using the same. You can do this with the same 2 claps as well, but you might get some phasing issues if you do that. And in the club, if you make it too wide, it will fall away. That's what happened when I did this first. I made the track with the vocal. I made the vocal really wide, but it didn't work in the club because a lot of clubs have it's all mono. So the vocal just went really quiet. In the headphones, it sounds amazing. But once you get to the club, it can sound totally different. Everything sounds different in a club. So you have to go back, and I made it less wide, so in the club it still works. But yeah, I don't like to go all the way mono because it sounds kind of boring. So this is the main, it's a 909 kick. Simple 909. I put a saturator on it to make it sound a bit dirtier. Sound a bit like not so cool right now. Also, if you put it up, it sounds too dirty here. The bass thing, I don't know what it even does. Once you pull it down, it filters it out in some way. I don't know, which makes it sound a bit better, but still hard. And then I find EQing so important. I EQ every little sound like crazy. It might be. So on this kick, I made the bass come up a little bit around frequency like 100 hertz. What is it? Just to give it extra more punch. I didn't really add I add the bass here too, but I find around this frequency right here, once you pull that up, especially because of the bass, it's so low, it has to sit in with that bass so it can come true. Otherwise, it's just all the same kind of sound you hear. And yeah, and then as well, so after that, I added this little one, this little hi-hat. It just gives it a little extra punch, not much, but the tick here really does the difference once you add that little tick, which is also a different, I think it's a rim sound. It's a nice little trick. I do it on a lot of tracks, especially because a lot of the stuff I make is very bassy. So I really want the kick to punch true as well. Yeah. The influence I have on these things is very from Ghetto House, and they just made their whole tracks true. There is no breaks in these tracks, which is really interesting. But it's also hard to do. The more simple your track becomes, the harder it is to make it really cool. So you have to have the groove exactly right. The hi-hats need to be exactly right. All the sounds need to be just right. Otherwise the track is not cool enough. So I like that way of thinking. So I keep it very basic and just try to make the groove right on point. It was like 15 seconds long. I made the vocal, I looped it, I added this guitar bass line on it. Very simple, just one note, dum dum dum. Then I added this mini Moog one, which made it sound a bit more interesting. Then then I take that away again, and it's the same loop again. You know, it's this again. One note and the vocal and the snares. It's pretty much the same all the way through. Of course it goes into this bass line here, but then it goes back to this. And what I was thinking for the second break, because I was out of ideas, I just thought, okay, I'm gonna do nothing at all. I'm just gonna let the vocal run through. Because I feel when I play out and when I DJ, when you take things away, people go crazy for some reason. I don't know why. Even when you cut out the sound, people go like, ah. So I really wanted to have that effect going on. So what I did was just take the vocal, I looped it even longer. There's nothing on there's a little decay going on in the reverb. Besides from that, that's it. Now the clap comes in, and eventually I take out the sound completely and then go back into the track. And again, the same thing as in the beginning. And here for the breaks, I really didn't want to have any break going on, so I just took stuff out. So when you hear this little break, it's the kick comes out and the drums come out, the little riff starts playing, but I didn't want to build up anything crazy because I'm really tired of that sound when it builds up and then it drops back in. So I just want to take stuff out and then just back in. It's really simple, the same loop over and over again. I want to kind of go the other direction because I feel everything in the recent years has gone from making crazy breakdowns and higher, and then it all explodes. But I just want to, I'm going in the opposite direction of not doing that. I guess it all depends on what time you live in when we do this and what's cool and what's not. Like in the beginning when I started making music, for example, I added and kept adding because it got boring after a while. So I added stuff to make the song better. But if you really get down to the basics, if that isn't good, then there's no point in finishing your track. That's why a lot of people say always finish your tracks and then keep finishing tracks, which is, it's good advice to practice. But if you have like a 15-second loop and that loop is the best loop ever, you know you got it right. If your loop is like, okay, I don't know, I don't feel like the need of finishing it then, because then, I don't know, the end product might not be so great because you keep adding stuff to make it sound interesting. On this track, I didn't use any automation really. It's because I wanted to have, although on the vocal I did use some automation, I filtered the vocal in and out, especially in the beginning when it comes in. But that is a really basic automation, just the auto filter. I like to use the auto filter on everything. The reverb I like to use as well. There's some ping pong delay on it too. And that's about it. That's about it for on this track for automation. That's about it, what I used. Usually I'd like to use some more automation to make it, depending on what track you're making, to have some organic feel, things change up as well. That's if you use a synth, hardware synth, the sound always is a bit different, but in Ableton you would have exactly the same sound because it's so sterile. But some plugins like this Minimoog, for example, has the Matrix, which you can put on and you fiddle a little bit with these buttons here. I don't know, half of it works, but it makes it sound different every note a little bit, which gives it a more organic feel. So if you turn it off, I don't know if you can tell, just turn off the filters as well. Okay, can't really tell, but I'll single out a note. When I press this one, it's the same kind of sonic, whatever you hear, everything's the same all the time, but you turn the Matrix on, but you have to fiddle around a bit with these buttons, and you get a different sound, which is interesting. It's a nice little trick. So how I balance it all to make it all pop, especially in the club, is to use different panning on different sounds, for example here, and some compression as well, really basic stuff here, just on the kick to get that pulse going, and the kick comes out a little bit more because I don't want the frequencies to mess with the kick. So you can't.
That's a side chain on.
It's a side chain on the vocal. And let's see if I side chain here as well. I don't like to use too much side chain on the bass, just a little. So the kick comes out a little bit more, because otherwise it sounded way too muddy. The whole track sounded too muddy. I actually don't put anything on my master, nothing at all. I just like to pull all the sounds down in the different channels, so that it doesn't go in the red here, which makes it sound bad. But usually I don't put anything on the master. I like to put stuff on the individual tracks. I'll add an L1 to like every single drum sound because that's the way I learned it. You know, or I make a group. Let's say if I have a clap, uh, I don't know. Actually, I like to use it on the different channels because then you get a different sound for every single. That's what I like about Ableton. You can create your own atmosphere because it's so neutral. It's so sterile, should I say? So if you use the plugins, they don't have any. The plugins, like the filters, they don't have any character really to it. So you have to make your own character, which is what I like in Ableton. You can really get your hands on it and create exactly what you want, which makes it at the same time maybe a bit harder. Let's say if you have a sound from a hardware synth, it has already the buzz in there and the grit, which it's a quicker way of working as well, I think, if you get that hardware sound going on. My training in Ableton is really, I never had anybody showing me how Ableton works, for example. So I had to learn it myself, so I just do it my own way. And then I'll bounce it like this so it doesn't go into the reds here, and I'll fake master it by putting stuff on that. But I don't like to put anything on the master. Yeah, but if I do send it to, let's say if I send it for mastering, I would not put anything on that.
It's just if you're testing it in the club?
Yes.
And what do you use if you're doing that then?
Then I use L1 and just Ozone for EQing. The simpler you can make your track, the better it will be, and the longer it will actually stay relevant as well. My most famous tracks are tracks where nothing happens for 7 minutes. And I would like to go even more simpler, but it's a process, you know. I learn something every day when I make songs, and I would like to eventually make a song that has nothing. If I could make a track that has one clap in it and it would be interesting, I would make a track with one clap. But it's very hard to do because you have to get that exact right clap.